Some of the people within the organisation of the Heltavik Guards are not a massive fan of my analytical work. I think that's pretty obvious. I've been fairly critical of some of the stuff and some decisions, and maybe the way that some of their team has performed, to me, is perceived differently to some of the people on the team. That's fine. Everyone views things differently. Everyone breaks down numbers differently. Stats don't tell the whole story of a defense. So I was encouraged by someone I actually know quite well. Mike, he's the D tackle defensive end for the Heltavik Guards. First of all, Mike, it's not a Skip Bayless take. Skip Bayless said that LeBron James would lose to a 55-year-old Michael Jordan or something. So, no. But I like Mike. We played together, and I don't want to be too critical of his team, but sometimes, it's just the way that cookie crumbles in this instance. But it got me thinking that maybe I should review some of the Heltavik Guards tape. And I've been very high on Ken Hike for a number of years. I think he's a great corner. I think he's one of the best in Europe. So I wanted to highlight him today. And I know Mike's going to say whether, it's the front seven. I'm sure he will. I appreciate you. I will get to the front seven. But Ken Hike has re-signed to the Heltavik Guards. And coming into this year, he's definitely another player that's going to be all-star level. And I wanted to highlight him. So I'll get to the front seven at some point. And I will slightly talk about the front seven a little bit. Not very much. I'll leave that to a separate video. But I will get to it at some point. I've got about 1,000 players in Europe on my boards I need to get through. So we're knocking them off one at a time. So be patient. We're getting there. Each one of these takes about 7-8 hours to make. So allow me a little bit of room in it. The massive part of Hike's game that I don't think gets talked about enough is his impact on the run game and his impact on short yardage plays. He's excellent at coming off blocks. The play speed is usually there. Not all the time. There are instances where he slows down a little bit on engaging. But he's aggressive on engaging. He has strong hands. He fights through contact. And he's able to make a play on the ball quite often. His tackling is also pretty good. He'll wrap up. He'll grab a little bit of ankle or a bit of jersey. Just something that he can help while his team come to support him. So definitely a part of his underrated aspect of his game is this short yardage plays. I think one of my favourites throughout the year was probably against Milan Seaman. This is late in the game, it's in the third quarter. Seaman are way ahead in the scoreboard. But he's playing far side corner. They are very close. The running back motions out. He immediately fights through that block. And the player that ended up blocking him at the end is the person who was meant to be receiving the ball. It did not end up like that. Because Ken Hike is so aggressive, follows through, takes the contact, is able to get low, and disrupts the play entirely. And this is not a one-off occurrence by any means. I think that he probably has the best block shedding for any strictly corner player in the league. I don't even think it's particularly close, to be honest. The technique he shows and the leverage and the bend, even in his knees and his ankles, it's just on a different level to any European especially. And then I don't really even think any of the Americans come close either. Granted, some of the people he's out blocking here are smaller than him physically, but doesn't negate the fact that he uses his length in a super effective way. He's able to get inside and out, contains the edge at corner, which is the most important thing when it comes to run stopping, and is physical with running backs and with the receivers on the screen. Obviously, the thing that matters most to the corner is can he cover. Ken Hike can fucking cover, that's for sure. As a man coverage guy, I trust him with pretty much everyone in the league. His movement is so fluid, it's hard for anyone to really keep up with him. He can cover 10, 15 yards in one kick step, it feels like. So he is certainly an elite movement guy in the league. He's aggressive when the ball is in the air. He's aggressive when the ball is in the ball carrier's hands. He will try and rip the ball out. He'll try and punch it out with the catch point. When he's longer, he can entrap smaller receivers if they try and come outside. And I think his ball skills are in the top echelon of cornerbacks in the European League of Football. Does he use his hands as much as he possibly could in press coverage? No. I wouldn't say he's a press cover corner. And he does have a tendency, he will stare at the quarterback for the majority of the play. Sometimes this is really good because it means he can see the ball. Sometimes not so much because he might lose track of the receiver. It's kind of pros and cons to both of them. But he's definitely aware of his surroundings, and he could probably use his hands a bit more when it comes to the press and the physicality during the route. That would be my criticism to his coverage. As a zone guys who we saw the Heltavik Guards had some struggles with pass coverage in the year. They had Marcel Beard and they had Ken Hike, who were two excellent players. But overall, that defensive back unit did struggle. I put this down as more of a safety thing. There are instances where Ken is passing over a receiver. The safety either comes down or doesn't fulfill his role as well as he possibly could. So in this instances, I'm going to put that more down to other players rather than Ken's zonal ability. Now the thing I would like to see more of from Ken is overall kind of play speed. Sometimes he'll start these plays very flat-footed, very upright and not quite ready for the snap. He's a lot more loose. Obviously, you're a corner. You don't need to necessarily be in a stance every single time the ball is snapped. But it's pretty evident when he is flat-footed. This has left him susceptible to play-action passes as well as over-the-top plays. And also when it comes to motions. Sometimes, like we saw against the Raiders, Sydney motions in, comes back out. Because of the flat-footedness, Ken is not able to get there in time, and it ultimately results in a touchdown. And I think with Ken, he doesn't necessarily play to the echo or the whistle. Like sometimes players get a couple extra yards, and when he's tackling them, they might just push across the line. We saw this in some third and 2 kind of range, where it could have been a 4th down if Ken played to the whistle. His trigger also, I wouldn't put in the elite category. He is a great mover, but the trigger isn't in the top level. He can be kind of slower, or the flat-footedness kind of comes into play on this as well. Some players that he is clearly faster than have beaten him on these inside breaking routes just because he isn't on it like that. Overall, this film study just kind of made me more of a fan of Ken. Like, I do really, really like his game. I like the aspects that he brings to it. I like the intensity. I like the special teams value because he's also a very good return man. I didn't really touch on this. I wanted to keep it more as a positional focused thing. But he does have the speed to return kicks for touchdowns. And I think a massive part of Ken's influence was really lost last year because without Ken, I don't think Beard wins the Defensive Player of the Year. Ken took the American receiver 99% of the time. He didn't get a lot of love from voters. He was second team All-Star, which maybe he could have been first. And overall, I just think he deserves a lot more attention, man. I really do. I think he's a top 2 or 3 corner in this league, honestly. He's that good, in my opinion. And I've spoken to people that have played against him and other people in the ELF space, and they all agree that he is that good. That's why I think that media members such as myself, Jamal Clay, all of us at AFI, Alex as well with AFI, deserve, ELFopedia, who is a huge one. I don't know who it is, but they deserve their credit. I think that we should get a vote on the ELF All-Stars because I think that Ken would have seen a lot more appreciation for his work. So that'll tie it up. Much appreciated as always. Thank you very much. Always enjoy making these videos. So I will see you later. I've done a lot of DBs. I'm a DB. I wasn't a very good DB. I'm sure Mike, I mentioned in the beginning, would testify. I wasn't a very great DB, but it's a position I know best and I can evaluate the most comfortably. I'll probably do some offensive line or defensive line at some point in the year. Maybe next. Who knows? We'll find out. Till next time, thank you very much. Goodbye.